Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Today, we are going to have another candid discussion on insurance as it applies to the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, if you watched the first video that I've done on this particular topic, I told you some pitfalls, some common pitfalls that you can fall into if you insure your precious antiques and collectibles through a homeowner's insurance company that goes and attaches a rider to your homeowner's insurance policy and says, hey, we'll cover your collectibles, we'll cover your antiques. One of the things you got to be aware of is that regardless what your friendly neighborhood insurance agent tells you, you are governed by the terms contained in that contract, also known as the insurance policy itself. If you get into a dispute with a multi-billion-dollar insurance company in the year 2021 or later, most likely you're going to lose. And number two, if it goes in front of a lawyer, if it goes in front of a court system, obviously they are going to go by what is spelled out in the policy itself, also known as your contract. They are not going to go by what your friendly neighborhood insurance agent told you. So I just want to be clear on that. Another thing that I do want to reiterate, obviously, even as myself being an analyst and consultant in the trade, I have not read every single insurance policy out there as it relates to antiques and collectibles. That would be an impossible task. I can tell you both horror stories and stories of excellence that came out of somebody having to file a claim and either they did not have enough coverage or they were not protected in a manner that they thought they were, or the insurance company took care of them 100% to the point where they literally go on the internet to this day and say, you know what, it was horrible how I lost my prized possession in a fire, or my prized possession got stolen, or whatever happened to it. But the insurance company took care of everything to 100%, to the point where I was totally reimbursed and all my items were replaced, and I feel good knowing that I did business with that company. So I can point you to stories of both ends of the extreme. The problem is whenever you get involved with an insurance company, you really don't know how good your coverage is until something happens that requires you to lean on that particular coverage. And that's why there's a ton of loopholes, red flags, problems that can rise up as a result of, in most cases, collectors, people just not understanding the coverage that they have and taking the time to read through the policy that they were handed by the company they chose to do business with. Now, again, you may have your collectibles, your antiques insured through your homeowner's insurance policy with a rider, and you may very well be 100% protected. But in my opinion, in most cases, for people out there that have valuable collections of antiques and collectibles, they're going after investment grade comic books, coins, traditional antiques, whatever it is that you collect, if it has a value on the secondary market, you should probably go through a specialty company that deals with nothing but underwriting policies on collectibles, antiques, artwork, antiquities. Now, I am not corporately sponsored. You guys know I'm 100% independent. I am not going to name any companies in this particular video, but they are out there. Now, what I want to do in this video is, a lot of people reach out to me through my consulting business and they say, Sean, do I even need insurance on my collection of G.I. Joe figures or comic books or rare coins or vintage advertising or guns or artwork or whatever it is? And I have to really take a step back and I have to ask them several questions. And where I usually start is, it all comes down to how much risk you personally want to stomach. And that's what people do not understand when they get involved in investing in a lot of these alternate asset classes. You know, I've said this before, guys. In my opinion, I'm going to be 100% honest. Everybody who I encountered in the antiques and collectibles trade over the decades of being in this business, who considers themselves an investor, a speculator, a very high burst financial collector who is investing in this stuff with a financial mindset in tow, in most cases, like 90% of the time, most of these individuals would be better off putting their money in index funds over the long term rather than trying to invest in these markets. And I know that upsets a lot of you. I know a lot of you guys don't like my opinion on that because in the year 2021, every single antique and collectible category is going to the moon. I can tell you firsthand, I'm bidding right now as we speak. While I'm recording this video, I am perusing Heritage Auctions Central States auction geared towards high grade, investment grade, rare coins, rare pieces of currency, and almost everything that I'm going after, the price is already overtly exaggerated to the point I can already tell the final bids are going to go to the moon. It is insane. It is not just pop culture collectibles at present time that are soaring in value. We are seeing this across the board, and it's very scary to someone like me who has clients that come to me and they say, hey, Sean, I want to put my money in this particular item, and it doesn't even matter what the item is. Right now, if it is selling for a premium, I have to ask the person, is now really a good time for you to be purchasing this collectible, this antique, this piece of art, this antiquity, whatever it is? Now, this is where the topic of insurance becomes paramount, because if you are paying an inflated price for these collectibles, obviously you need to adjust how much insurance you have, because if you are protected under a policy for a collection that you may have, in the year 2020 and the year 2021, that collection may be worth more than you're anticipating just due to the changes in the market over the past 12 to 24 months, especially with the coronavirus, with the free stimulus money, with everything that's going on with inflation right now, with asset classes soaring. This is a very important discussion to have. Now, when we analyze the need for insurance in a lot of these markets, the first question I will ask my potential client as a consultant in the trade is, did you buy this collection for short term or long term? Now, this is very important because if somebody tells me, Sean, I repeatedly flip Pokemon cards, I really don't collect it, I just cycle through. When something goes up in value, I immediately sell it. Then I buy something else to replace it. And that's how I make my money. It's a constant flip game to me. What that tells me is they are operating almost like a low-level dealer. Now, this is something that you have to be aware of. If you go to some of these specialty insurance companies and you get insurance on your beloved Pokemon or Magic the Gathering collection or comic book collection or even rare coin collection, whatever it is, you have to answer their questions honestly. One of the questions they will most likely ask you is, are you operating as a dealer? Now, if you say no and something happens and you go to file a claim and they can prove you are operating as a dealer, most likely your claim is going to get denied or it's going to get held up and they're going to launch an investigation and ask more questions before they pay out that claim. So it is very important that you answer these questions honestly. There are different rates in most cases, not all, but in most, for dealers versus collectors versus speculators and investors. And what I mean by that is, obviously, if you have a collection, it's normal several times a year, you might go through that collection and you might sell some of your double Pokemon cards off. You may trade up to get something else. You may consign to an auction company. That's perfectly normal. The problem is, if you're doing it all the time, that means you're more likely to fall under the classification of a dealer rather that of just a collector. So this is something that you got to be aware of. So if you are going after just short-term flips, it is quite possible if you have, in my opinion, less than $10,000, even $20,000 or less in Pokemon cards, vintage comic books, Magic the Gathering cards, vintage video games, even if you're a low-level coin dealer, let's be honest, or flipper or speculator or investor, if that's the case, you may not need insurance, or you can get away with a reduced amount. I'm going to be 100% transparent with that, because this is something that sometimes when I have a conversation with a client, it'll come out where, well, they have a $20,000 collection or inventory total that they're flipping through, they may be able to get away with only insuring it for $10,000, meaning they'll take the risk if something happens to the whole collection. They'll be out $10,000 and they're okay with that. They can learn to manage that risk for paying less of a premium. Now, when we start talking about, though, if you are a long-term collector, meaning you're somebody that comes to me and you tell me, Sean, I have a passion for comic books, or I have a passion for vintage sports cards, or I have a passion for rare coins, or I have a passion for traditional antiques, or maybe you have a passion for vintage advertising. And you tell me, Sean, I've been collecting this stuff for 10, 20, 30. In some cases, I have people that come to me that have been collecting this stuff for 40, 50 years. At that particular point, yes, you're probably going to want to have full coverage on a lot of the items in your personal collection, regardless of whether you're investing in it over the long term and or you have an emotional attachment to it. If that's the case, and you are looking to go hardcore in to one collecting category, or maybe two or three, because you can get blanket coverage. I'm going to cover that in an upcoming video if I don't touch it on it in this. You can get blanket coverage that says, hey, I collect Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and vintage video games. Can I get a $50,000 policy to cover me for these three collecting categories? And I can explain to you that, yes, there are insurance companies that will say, okay, we'll do that for you. We will write a blanket coverage policy for those three collecting categories. Now, where you can get into trouble there is, let's say that you all of a sudden start collecting comic books, and the insurance company has on file that you only collect Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and vintage video games. Well, thieves break into your house, they steal all your collections, and you tell the insurance company, well, I had $10,000 of comic books as well that was stolen. They're going to come back to you and they're going to say, but it's not in your policy. You never told us you were collecting comic books. So you have to be very careful because there are loopholes when we get into the meat and potatoes of this, where if you don't tell the insurance company everything, they obviously can't protect you for everything. That's your fault. That is not their fault. Now, another thing that I always ask potential clients when they come to me with this is, how much do you earn? What is a lot to you? I can tell you firsthand, I deal with people on both sides of the wealth divide. And I know I don't like to use that terminology, but it fits perfectly in this equation. If you are a hedge fund manager who lives in Connecticut and you work out of New York and you make $500,000 to $1 million plus a year, your perception of how much risk you can afford to take on in any asset class, in any market, through investing, speculating, or likewise, is very different than Timmy S. Poindexter Jr., who, I'm going to give credit to Rudy with Alpha Investments here, who is flipping tacos at Taco Bell, making minimum wage, and who may have a $5,000 or $10,000 Magic the Gathering or Pokemon collection and is just starting out in his career. So these are two different circumstances and two different people with obviously different mindsets and, to be fair, different definitions of what constitutes risk versus loss versus reward. So you kind of have to look at it from that standpoint. Now, in my opinion, I will tell you that most people out there that work in corporate America that make $50,000 to $100,000, most people consider a collection valued at $10,000 or more to be the tipping point to where they want to look into getting insurance on. And I can statistically prove that. I can show demographics where whether you're just starting out in corporate America and you got your first corporate job, you're in an entry-level position and you make $50,000 a year, or you moved up several times, maybe you make $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Both of those types of people, when a collection gets to the point of $10,000 or more, that becomes the tipping point. And it doesn't matter if it's one $10,000 item that they really saved for, that they came to the market and they bought, or if it's 10 $1,000 items, or if it's made up of a smorgasbord of 50, 500, 1,000, $75 items all thrown together, called a collection, and it just happens to be valued at $10,000 or more. So it really doesn't matter at that point, but that seems to be the cutoff. Now, this is very crucial. There are limitations on certain collectibles, regardless of whether or not you go through a specialty insurance company or not. There are certain companies out there that cater to insuring all antiques and collectibles. I assure you, they still have limitations where you may have to use a specialty insurance company that covers solely that one type of antique or collectible. Let me give you some examples here, guys. If you collect gold and platinum coins, it doesn't matter if you're buying them just for the bullion value or you're like me, like I love proof gold coins that can cost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 or more per coin. I literally have to go through a specialty insurance company that caters to investment grade coins to get those particular items insured. My average collectible insurance company out there will not touch those types of rare coins. So you have to pay attention to this. Usually when you reach out to a specialty insurance company that operates in the antiques and collectibles market, they will tell you, hey, we will insure all rare investment grade coins made of silver and any other metal other than gold and platinum. That's sometimes how it'll be worded in their contract, and they'll let you know that up front so that you know, hey, you can get your Morgan Silver Dollar collection insured through them, maybe even your Peace Dollar collection or your Barber coin collection, but you're not going to be able to insure your collection of St. Gaudens gold dollars or Indian Head gold dollars. You're not going to be able to insure them through that particular company. So you may likely have to add on another policy in addition to having that one main policy through that specialty company. So that's where it can get a little bit complex. I will also tell you that certain specialty insurance companies in the antiques and collectibles trade, especially geared towards insurance, do not like to insure weapons in certain instances, whether they be antique firearms, modern firearms, edged weapons, and also high-end pieces of artwork. There are certain companies out there where if you are paying 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars for a piece of artwork, you can go through an insurance company that caters to that high-end top 1% of the market, like people who are billionaires that play in that pool. There are insurance companies that cater specifically to them, that will insure a Van Gogh, a Monet, something from one of the grand masters in the art market. So that is something to know. There are certain collecting categories where you need to go through a specialty insurance company just to get them insured. Now, another thing that I want to answer in this video before we end it is everybody always asks me about cost. Now, this is very important. If you recall, and there's a reason why I saved this one to the end. If you recall, in some of my videos, I talk about when I used to go on online collecting forums, and it could be any online collecting forum. I'm not picking on any one category of collectible or antique out there, but I would come across people who would tell me, hey, Sean, I want to own a $500,000 comic book or a $100,000 video game or a $100,000 Magic the Gathering card. And I would think in my head, how is this person going to afford to insure it? This becomes paramount, guys, because just for $10,000 to $20,000 of blanket insurance coverage through a specialty insurance company that caters to the antiques and collectibles market, on average, you're going to pay anywhere from $100 to $300 per year. Now, that's very reasonable for $10,000 to $20,000 worth of coverage, but you have to factor this in your costs. A lot of you guys tell me, Sean, I'm investing in this in the long term. Nothing you can say can change my mind. If the market goes down, I'll simply buy more. I'm going all in. I'm going diamond hands, rocket ship to the moon. Okay, I get that. But you have to analyze not only the opportunity cost that you're paying for the items that you are investing in the antiques and collectibles trade, you also have to understand there's other expenses there. There's maintenance costs and there's cost of insurance. Now, let me put this in perspective for you. Going back to the example of the little Timmy that wants to own a $100,000 video game or a $100,000 Pokemon card, just to insure that particular item, it's going to cost him anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per year to insure that particular item fully if he is buying a $100,000 item. And most specialty insurance companies that cater to the antiques and collectibles trade, they're going to require you to provide a schedule, which is known as a listing, of all the items that are over a certain dollar amount. Now, most go towards items that are $5,000 or more. So if you have a Pokemon card worth $4,000, if that's the rule that that insurance company uses, you're not going to have to list it on a special schedule. However, those of you that collect CGC graded comic books, I use this example in part 1 of this particular series. If you have a giant size X-Men 1 in CGC 9.4, well, 4 to 5 years ago, that was a $2,000 to $3,000 book. Today, that's a $12,000 book. So if you have coverage through any of these specialty insurance companies, you literally may have to go back through your collection, make sure that you have enough coverage, number one, to protect these items now that they appreciate it so much. And number two, you may have to tell them, hey, I do own a giant size X-Men 1, which is now a $12,000 plus comic book in CGC 9.4, even though back when I bought it and paid only $2,000 to $3,000 for it, I didn't have to list it and let the insurance company know that I have that particular item in my collection. So all this is connected. I see a lot of people that get burnt in the antiques and collectibles trade, not just through speculation and not understanding the basics of the markets and how they work, but they also get burnt when they go to try to get insurance on their collectibles and they don't understand the idiosyncrasies of how insurance is governed, how the whole insurance business, I hate to say it, is pretty much geared towards protecting the interests of the insurance company. So this is something that we are going to go into a deeper dive in when I do more videos in this series. I just wanted to give you guys a taste of the complexities of getting involved in having insurance through any type of specialty insurance company when you talk about insuring these particular items that you love, that you invest in, that you have a passion for, whether you're doing it over the short term or over the long term. These are some of the risks that you have to be aware of. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. And yes, there will be other videos produced in this series because we haven't even scratched the surface when we talk about insurance. And I'm not going to get too detail oriented in these videos, but I do want to at least give you guys the basics so you know what you're getting into if you do decide to go this route. Thank you for watching and have a great night.